Welcome, welcome to my global African family. I hope all is well today with everybody. Ekaro, Ekasan, Ekele, wherever you are across the globe. My name is Brother Oloboyega Tukumbo. Most know me as Siraj Odekunle, but all four of these names are my names, so however you wish to address me. We are here today to launch a very special podcast, Black Trauma Uncensored. This is our launch day of our new podcast, which will be hosted weekly every Thursday at 6:30 US Eastern Time and 11:30 GMT UK time. We decided to launch this podcast because we thought there was a need and it was necessary to launch this podcast, as we would like to speak on the unveiling the mask of white supremacy, systemic racism, and also delve into the intergenerational trauma and how that has affected our mental health as a global African family. So, we will be touching on various subject matters surrounding Black trauma. So, today I would like to introduce myself. My name is Brother Oloboyega Tukumbo. I was known as Siraj Odekunle. I've been within the community for the past 15 years. I've been active in the past 11, 12 years. I'm also founding member of the Man in the Mirror project and have launched a documentary called The Man in the Mirror, which basically delves into the life and journey of a young Nigerian boy who grew up within the United Kingdom, who overcame adversity and who was affected by systemic racism and oppression. I've also been active by traveling to different parts of the world and also hosting or facilitating my presentation, The Unpopular Truth Behind the Black Man's Abuse. So there's other stuff I could go into right now, but I would like to also introduce my co-host, ERA.
Greetings, African greetings, everyone. I am Ia Ray, known also as Sister Ray. I am the co host of Black Trauma Uncensored, and I believe I was requested to co host on this platform because of my background in social work and adult mental health, alcohol, other drugs, and addictions, and how that affects us intergenerationally as we navigate the Ma'afa and the institutions designed to keep us in a perpetual cycle of toxicity. So, the African Promise Age Based Responsibilities. Both Brother Siraj and I are within this age range, and we are Mbuta. We are accountable to the ancestors and our elders. We accept the responsibility of developing, maintaining, and defending Kisinsi, African cultural, spiritual, social, political, and economic order and system of organization. And we are providing a foundation for multi generational family continuity. And that is what BTU represents in our responsibilities to our African family. Today, we welcome one of our elders, esteemed elders, one of our Jegnas, who has shown us through her work that she is accountable to our ancestors as well. And she has assumed the responsibility of guiding our people and correcting them when necessary. And she has always had the courage to speak her truth, the African truth, when it is not popular. She lives with integrity and good character, and she has stayed connected with our people in order to continue to serve them. And we all affirm that we were born to fulfill the African promise, to achieve, maintain, and defend world African sovereignty. And without further ado, I introduce to you our Jegna, Mama Marumba Ani, who is our African centered cultural scientist.
Oh, Hodier, I am very glad to be here with this brother and sister. Um, Serious, brilliant African warriors. And I thank you for this opportunity to ground with our community.
All right, Mama. Well, we appreciate you extending your time and your energy, your precious time and energy to us. And you actually gave us the word ma'afa. Well, that's where I first heard it and learned it was from you. And so we want to jump right into it. Um, the Ma'afa. So here we talk about it as a programming system of institutions that I spoke of earlier, right? Where we talk about the penitentiary, we talk about academia, we talk about the corporate world, right? And they use the system of the Ma'afa to manipulate us, to control us artificially and unnaturally because it seeks to dehumanize us, right? Um, and what I don't want to happen is for people to think that maybe if they didn't go to an academic institution, right? If they've never been incarcerated, if they never had a white collar job, that they're not affected by the Ma'afa, because essentially it is a toxic environment. What made you come up with that term? What is
It
the
was
origins?
it was necessary. I felt when I was writing the "Let the Circle Be Unbroken," I wanted to use African terms. I think that my work as a Pan African scholar, was to help to reconceptualize the whole discourse or way that we think about and talk about our experience as an African people. Language is essential because the language helps to determine the outcome of the discussion and the thought process. And through our enforced period as captive workers, we were, as part of that, we were forced to give up aspects of culture which are essential to a people and to our people in particular, to act with strength and to act from their centers and to be whole and healthy. I said, no, we can't be using somebody else's concepts and then putting black onto them and think that we're really accurately talking about ourselves. So I said, let me get a term. Um, let me introduce a term, coin a term that uses our language. And I was working with professors who were teaching Kiswahili at Hunter College where I was, and I just asked them for something which meant disaster or great disaster, and I was given Ma'afa. Um, and what happened interestingly was that I never expected it to become so well accepted and used by our people. Also, there was a person who challenged it on the basis of its technical accuracy in the Kiswahili language. And it's very interesting that what I found was that in Bamana, in Fulani, and people can look this up themselves because I like for people to our people to find the information themselves, not just take my word for it. But you will find that ma'a, that is we would spell it MAA in European uh, writing. Um, that term relates to not only to mother and to the concept of ma'at, but to divinity, that which is most sacred, most divine in the world, in the community, in our culture. And you also find that the word fa is to kill.
Mm.
And I was told this by a young sister. She's an author in from Mali, who is Bamana. She said, "How did you know to have this word, this term, Ma'afa?" And I didn't know it, but it was ancestral. The ancestors came through. And so Ma'afa also means in these languages to kill divine humanity, or to attempt to do that. And that is what the Ma'afa is. That's why we have to understand it. It's not just like this horrible thing was done to any people. It was done to the most divine, sacred Ma'at people on the planet. We are the people of
Oh.
Ma'at.
Madasi, mama. And you said you spoke to reconceptualizing
Hmm.
African-centered reconceptualization, right?
Right.
In order to be able to do that, and this is where I read that you said that. This is Baba Nanafukia, right?
Oh,
You did
oh,
you Yeah, you wrote the introduction to this. The self-healing power in therapy, right?
right,
Um, but to be able to do that, what you say here is the healing is to be African, right?
right,
And to be African, you have you work with a number of other Jagnas, but here you speak to be believing in race first. We are so fragmented, right? When it comes to
yeah,
ideology,
right,
um, when it comes to these belief systems. But before anything, if we are going to come together as a collective, we must have a race consciousness, right?
yes,
We cannot detach ourselves from our cultural seed,
right,
our asili, right?
mm,
Because it is sacred, right? It is what tells us who we are. When we say to be African, what does it mean to you um, at this stage as um, an elder? Because you've had a lifespan in different stages
right,
calls
right,
for
right.
different
True,
responsibilities.
true.
So where you
And
are now, what does it mean to be African, and your responsibility to those of us who are coming after you?
it's a heavy responsibility, but it is also because of the Ma'afa and the effects of Ma'afa. It's very difficult and becomes more difficult because being African and advocating being African in the Ma'afa is it's difficult to get people to understand it, what you mean by it, because of the language that we have come to take for granted,
Hmm.
the thoughts that we have um what's the word, assimilated, or they become part of us without even
Assimilation.
realizing it. So the
Mm-hmm.
anti-Africanness in what we say, how we move, what we do, how we relate to each other it's almost subliminal. It's it's not conscious.
Mm-hmm.
It's now we can talk about on the conscious level all day, and people could say, yeah, I'm conscious, yeah, I'm African, I'm so forth. But the ways in which they function on an unconscious level,
That's contradictory.
it's hard to get people to see that. Yet that is essential if um the healing for our people, the healing from trauma, from from the abuse, from the control, from the domination.
Mm-hmm. And
um
so,
yeah.
not to cut your wisdom, Mama, use the healing.
Yes.
And so, when we talk about the subconscious behavior,
Right.
right, um, that keeps us, it keeps us in that perpetual cycle
Right.
of of being degenerate, right? Um, which is the opposite of regenerating who we need to be.
Right.
So let's speak to our culture as our immune system. It's a protective mechanism.
That's
Our
right.
African culture, right?
That's
Because
right.
it tells us, it gives us our foundation. You spoke to language, right? And
Right.
in addition to our language, it is how we present ourselves, right? What we wear, right? How we engage each other, our customs, right? Our rituals, right? So when we talk about culture as an immune system, we have to see ourselves militaristically as the people or the T cells, as you see here. It produces the culture. The culture as an immune system produces warrior T cells, which act to neutralize and eliminate antigens. What are the antigens? The antigens are our enemies,
Right.
right? And so when we move throughout this war zone of a society, we have to be conscious, not
Well, the
just
thing
saying that we're conscious.
you have to understand that everything is political.
All things are
Everything
political.
is political. Culture is especially political because culture tells you um, who you are, um, who you who has your back, who should have your back, and whose back you should have. In other words, it tells you what you live for. That's people have to understand culture is a way of life, but it is also it should motivates you.
Hmm.
Okay, it
Hmm.
inspires you. um it also tells you um who you die for.
Hmm.
That means it's telling you what team you're on.
Hmm.
You see, and when you have a team, when you move as a collective, as a group, and we're talking about our entire um the group that is the world African nation. That's who, to be African should mean that that is who you relate to. The world African nation. We call that universal African nationalism as an ideology. That's what Nana Garvey gave us. And what being African will give you, that power will give you that, give you that strength. It also gives you principles to live
Values.
by. Okay, so we can talk about the concept of ma'at and how it expresses itself in every African culture is Ma'at. And we know the principles of Ma'at. You know, we could go through all of those, and I think that people probably know them. And if not, it's very easy for you to familiarize yourself with them. But
Mhm.
and then also the African worldview in terms of complementarity, in terms of a reverence for nature. And I don't know if reverence is that's not the right word, because we are nature. And see,
Mhm.
the more we understand ourselves as that, when you held up the name of that book, that's probably one of the most important books that uh, our people could get right now is self-healing power and therapy.
Mm.
And the wonderful thing about it is that based on um traditional classical African thought expressed in our language, and that's what Tata Fukiao brought us. It's a small book. It is dynamite, packed with and it locates that healing in the self from birth. He talks about the whole process of birth.
Mhm.
Okay, I
And so when you say it alerts us, here it creates a warrior consciousness. The cultural immune system, it creates a warrior
right,
consciousness that alerts
right,
us to the attempted invasion of poisonous substances. And so those are the things that we absorb without even knowing that we're absorbing it, right? Because it's the propaganda that we endure
right,
daily,
right,
right?
right, right,
It's the counterproductive interactions that we have, that are not centered in what we must do to advance ourselves, to protect ourselves, right? That's
Yeah.
us talking about community, right? Ma'afa as a global power. So here you say the effects of the Ma'afa are manifested through the African world. In the Caribbean, South and Central America, and the US, the Ma'afa functions as a consistent system of genocide through cultural destruction and economic devastation. This has been going on for centuries, globally.
right,
Globally. So when we hear about people talk about genocide and they all up in arms and don't nobody know what to do, right? And we got to remember 9/11 and everything else, but we must forget why we still thinking about and talking about the greatest genocide ever committed and still continues through today,
right, right,
right?
right,
This is a part of
absolutely,
the a part of the agenda, a part of what they must do in order to preserve themselves, right?
absolutely.
Really.
Yet we must forget what we've gone through, so they say. Um, what is your position um, on the continent, the genocide that is occurring now? Because in the background, we talk about Rwanda, we talk about the Congo. Um,
Absolutely.
what are your thoughts about the state of the Congo today?
Is the every African person, organization, political act, should be have that on a front burner. The people of the Congo are being massacred as we speak. And more than that, the children there are being abused. The women in Congo, our women, our mothers are being abused as
Mhm.
a part of acts of war
Mm-hmm.
And this the global white power system supports that kind of behavior, that genocidal behavior, um, within African nations.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, because of my alpha illness, we have people within, um, that are supposed to be in leadership, within, in control of African people in on the continent, who are acting in behalf of the enemies of African people, and who are themselves murdering Africans and preventing those African. So, for instance, you mentioned before the AES,
AES. Mm-hmm.
right? The those um nations which have sought to come together for African power against uh white power neocolonialism, are having to also deal with neighboring African nations,
Mm-hmm.
and as they support the efforts of
The enemy.
the Europeans.
Right. And so I would say
Right.
that those African nations are suffering from the behavioral disorders
Right.
that were given to us by the likes of our Nana Amos Wilson, um, Nana Kobe Cambone, and Nana Bobby E. Wright.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. And so we
Hmm.
talk about cultural misorientation. Right.
Right.
But not to just harp on being culturally
Right.
misoriented, because that the term in and of itself tells you what that is, right? But what do we do to counter that cultural misorientation, right? Is, and I spoke earlier, when we talk about culture as the immune system, what you eat, not only what you eat, maybe what you wear, right? Um, how you decorate your home, um, the language that you use. When it comes to um, these behavioral disorders, a lot of people walk around undiagnosed,
Mm,
right? They don't even understand that they have an issue, that we have an issue, right? Because it affects one, it affects us all.
absolutely.
Um, Brother Siraj.
Yeah. So I'm gonna segue in. I'm gonna segue in. Okay,
Right.
so being that you are the author of the groundbreaking Urugu, you speak on the symptoms of Urugu. So can you explain to our audience, Mama, what those symptoms look like and how do they affect us? For those who may not know what Urugu means, or for those who just to refresh the memories of our Africa global African family.
Um, I think what I'd like to do, and I've written recently on the relevance of what is said in Urugu to our current situation,
Mm-hmm.
which is that you are actually seeing what happens when the Urugu being is in control of, or has power, and the power to execute destruction on the world. That's what we're seeing. And so what we're also seeing is, Bobby Wright talked about the psychopathic racial personality, and he put that um, personality in the context of its relationship of white people to black people, that we have to understand that's who they were. The thing about it is, I extend that a bit, a lot, to say that not only were are they psychopathic in relationship to us, but they are psychopaths.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, and then I think it would be good if we had a list of those things, and people need to look at this themselves. You can do this research yourself of what that means, what it means to be a psychopath. One thing it means is that you do not have a conscience. Hear me, everybody. That is extremely important. And he goes even further to say that it's not even that you don't know right from wrong or good from bad in terms of behavior, what should be and what shouldn't be. It's that
Mm-hmm.
you do not pay attention to them and they mean nothing to you. That is what it means to be sociopathic or a psychopath. And we are dealing now with people like that. People with that personality, we would call a disorder. For them, it is not, it is who they are.
Mm-hmm.
That is who they are because they are Yurugu, and that's who Yurugu is. So that to think in terms of them behaving in a way that is morally correct or what we might think is correct or so forth, um, is not only a mistake and a waste of time, but it's non-productive, and it is, if we talk about war strategy, we not talking with sense. Okay, no, no, that doesn't mean anything to them. They know what they're doing, and they don't care,
Mm-hmm.
because another factor in that personality disorder is that they are very is narcissism, meaning that they are totally consumed with what gives them pleasure, and what gives them pleasure is the destruction of others.
What we have continued to
And
see
in our
over
case,
time.
Mm.
right.
And when you
And,
say,
and see, people have to remember that if you're talking about um, what's called America, right? You're talking about a place that was built by stolen labor on stolen land, which is what Brother D. Nubian has said. That's who they are. That's that's how they came to be, and now they're in the process of moving the world to global destruction. I mean, that's what they want.
mm-hmm.
Mm.
Okay, so you ask what I do now and what it means to me now. Um, we need a real severe reality check. All of us.
Mm-hmm.
We're dealing with Yoruba, and that's part. In answer to your question is I never real expected the book to be that relevant.
Massive. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
definitely, and it still plagues
Right.
among our global communities,
Yes,
and we are
absolutely.
affected
Absolutely.
when we're
Absolutely.
and we're affected through the systemic racism and everything
Absolutely.
connects,
Absolutely.
whether it's a public school system, which we send our babies to, whether it's a public school system, whether
Well,
it's
Baba, let me tell you, the sad thing is so that the colonial conditioning went so deep, and that's what I think probably you can help in terms of talking about conditioning, the process of conditioning and program, and went so deep that our nations who got so-called independence, when they then had control, which they're supposed to have now, of the educational system, they established schools which continued the tradition of colonial education, the colonial education that they had gotten.
Mhm.
And that's what you see now in African nations is the further development of colonial education, only it's supposed to be under quote unquote independence. You see? So
Mhm.
that's not African sovereignty.
Mhm.
Where children are, they don't learn about their history. They don't learn about their warrior ancestors. They don't learn about Ya Santewa. They still
And
are learning about and have images of
European
Queen
values.
Mhm.
Victoria and Queen Elizabeth and Queen
Yeah.
this and
Yeah,
so forth
yeah.
in their textbooks. And if you
Mhm.
don't believe me, just get a hold of one and look at it.
Mhm.
And a lot of the evidence, this is evident today, where you have the so-called Prince Charles, who visits all over Africa, different parts of Africa, all through the Caribbean, and a lot of them are still attached to the Commonwealth. So they continuously impose their curriculums
Right,
within their schooling system.
right,
Because there's been
right,
stories
Because
of,
it's global.
yeah, and there's been
It's
stories about,
global. You're gonna
and
leave one to go to the other, and it's gonna be the same thing, right?
absolutely, absolutely,
It's
and
gonna
it's
be
not
the
until they
indoctrination
move,
of the European values.
exactly, and it's not until they move to the UK and the US then they see that they have a huge reality check. Yeah.
Right.
yeah. Well,
Mhm.
I really on a sad note, if you knew what some black people from the U.S. are bringing to Africa and infusing into the African continental community, you wonder why are they coming? You know,
Mhm.
why are they there? But they're not coming to organize and support, AES and so forth. They're coming to recreate um, negative things that we have created here, meaning we black people in Ma'afa, because of not understanding our illness.
Mhm.
So there is a need for us to look inside and to do personal transformational work when we're considering going back to the continent.
And so when we sank for ourselves and
Absolutely.
we reach back and study who we were to know who we are.
Right.
This is the paradigm that you've created, the beginning, right? To let us know what stability looks like, right?
Right.
What our natural state is, right?
Right. What
When
health
we
looks like. That's right. That's right.
healthy, right? What it means
Absolutely.
to be healthy,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right? But then we have to have an understanding of where we are. And a lot of us don't know that this is where we are because we've been conditioned to think that
This
everything that we are, we created, not understanding that there is a whole system. There is somebody behind the scenes that is dictating the direction that you go in, right? And
hmm
it's off your path. It
hmm
is not our way,
right,
right?
right, right, right.
And so you take us through this, right? From telling us what it looks like when we are healthy to when we have eruptions and disruptions in our rhythm, and we're taking off our path. And you see our chain of DNA broken, right?
Hmm.
But then you also tell us what we need to do to counteract the virus, right? How we heal ourselves. And in that,
Let me go back because thank you for that. But
mhm,
the virus itself, what I call the Urugu virus, it's something which you see a virus has no life of its own, and what it needs is a host. It
mhm,
needs a host which it can then transform into a place that allows it to reproduce itself. So
mhm,
it's really getting life from the host.
mhm,
I'm just to use that metaphor, you all. And so what has happened is that the Ma'afa makes us susceptible to the virus. It
mhm.
makes it opens us up. It gives the enemy access to us so that we can then be used by them for energy.
That's right. And
They
we
really
we
need us. They need us. They need, you know,
because we're the host.
blackness and black people.
Absolutely.
um,
And so and we sense that in our souls.
right,
That's why we succumb to escapism.
right,
And
right.
nothing ever seems like it's enough. Right? We become complacent, and then like you say here, we become addicts, right?
Hmm.
We say, "Oh, I just have an addictive personality." No, you're seeking something, and you don't realize that you come from divinity. You don't come from
Right,
Ogo. You don't come from that being that intentionally separated itself from the creator and now cannot come back. That's
right,
not you, but
right.
because you're
Absolutely,
functioning as
absolutely.
if you are that, you're in disarray, right?
Hmm.
And so when we say the culture is the immune system, that spiritual development, that tells you when I rise every sunrise, I'm giving honor to my ancestors. I'm
Hmm.
I'm doing my
Good.
Chepsima Pop Netaru, my comedic yoga, right? I have my breathing techniques. I properly breathe throughout the day. I'm drinking my electrolytes, my hydrated water, right? I'm eating my greens, my proper foods. I'm not craving these other things because I'm fulfilled through my culture because it tells me what I'm supposed to be doing. But I'm so conditioned that I'm doing everything that I was trained to do, right? And unfortunately, it starts in the birthing room. It start and then and then it
Absolutely,
transitions into the school system,
absolutely.
elementary
No,
school.
I think that the work that has to be done is not going to be easy. That does not mean that it shouldn't be done. That doesn't mean that it isn't the right work. But that does mean that there has to be a recognition that, you know, we need to do this. And there's
Collectively.
only one way to do it collectively. And that is we have to create the environment in which we live. It is not going to happen in a toxic environment. We have to
And when we
actually create environments, and we can do that maybe not necessarily immediately on a large level. It might
start
be
with
a
community.
small level, but it's got to be, you know, these villages that are created, which are
Hmm.
conducive to the health.
In a harmonious environment, right? And
Absolutely,
and it really
absolutely.
does, even though um we don't we don't do individualism, right? But it's important to know that you have to have a degree of introspection in order to be able to value self, to acknowledge self, right?
To have a degree of what was that? What's it you
I-
said?
Introspection, to be able to see
Oh no,
within.
absolutely. You
Yeah.
see, the self and the person are not necessarily the individual. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what you're talking, and they're
I
very
am.
important in this healing. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that the concept of individual is that which is divided totally from um the rest of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Divided. It is
Divided.
divided off, right?
It
And
says it in the word divid, divide,
absolutely. And
individual.
in European psychology, um individuation was seen as not only a positive thing but as a necessary thing, in turn, if one was to mature and
Mm,
develop, you know, as a mature human being. And that ain't an African conception. Okay.
right.
And the concept of person is extremely important in the African worldview and African understanding, the person. And I wish that I had a slide here of
Mm-hmm.
you can make it in your own, everybody listening can do that. Make it in your own mind of a series of concentric circles. That's
Mm-hmm.
important. So you have a small one, then you have a bigger one, and then you have another bigger one, and then another bigger one. And you can use those to move from the African concept of the person
Mm-hmm.
to the family,
Mm-hmm.
to the community,
To the
to
nation.
the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll understand the person is so important in African thought, but that's not the individual, it's the person. The person is the universe, because the concentric circles is that all of those overlapping circles have the same center.
Mm-hmm.
I hope
The
that
core.
makes sense to everybody who's listening.
You
And
core.
so you yourself are the center of that universe, and that's good. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the universal order, or the divine order of Ma'at, is replicated in you, and you are a replication of the Ma'atic order and of the universal order.
And then in that, when we are dealing with the law of proximity, and we say, oh, well, we live in this neighborhood, and when there's crime, well, we're only doing the crime to each other because you're the closest thing to me. When I need something and I ain't got it over here, I'm gonna take it from you, right? If I don't have any self love or self worth for myself, and I'm disliking myself, I see you as my reflection. I want to get rid of that, right? And so when we are dealing with that internal harmony, then we have a different lens of how we see our reflection in the world. Because now, when I see my sister, I see myself, right? And I'm inclined to love on her like I love on myself. And the same for my brother. And and to your point here, when you say part of that, the Ma'afa virus, the Urugu virus, is defining our manhood and womanhood in European terms. That's part of the problem. That's why I never, this whole
Mm,
thing about how the gender wars escapes me, because what do you mean? The
right,
way that the argument is being had is in
right,
alignment with something that is not in, that's misaligned with us. It doesn't
right.
even make sense. It's
Absolutely.
non-communal. There's nothing there that says balance, right? It's all chaotic, and the problems that we say that we have with each other are problems that really are out in the world, and we're turning inward on each other with the anger, as opposed to turning outside and looking and say, okay, so how do we change this situation? How do we improve our condition in this space that we're in? Instead, we're imploding. right? That's a part of that virus.
I
And
think
so,
one of the things that we're going to have to do that again is a challenge, but it's still necessary. I think we have to create sacred spaces,
mhm,
and within those sacred spaces, they are also safe spaces, and they because think about it, we don't even use the term love anymore
mhm,
much, and certainly not with each other. Um, but you have to be safe to be able to do that.
because it's a vulnerable space to be in.
And love is a joining as opposed to a separation.
hmm
So
So a couple years ago, we had a discussion about epigenetics and use. And when I mentioned the word, well, first of all, let's talk about what that is, right?
right.
Epigenetics. Okay, so this is from a neuroscience journal, right? And I'm going to read it for those who may not be able to see or um, view the slide. So it says new reports reveal the histones can be directly directed and modified by serotonin and dopamine, right? These are the pathways of your brain, right? So, two neurotransmitters that regulate neuron activity during memory storage and retrieval. So, the long lasting changes in your chromatin structure are emerging with essential roles for memory and the expression of complex behaviors, and it is evident by the dysregulation in these processes, and it is central to vulnerability, manifestation, and trajectory of mental health disorders. And basically, what it's saying is the neurons in our brains, right, are affected by these what do you call them? Hormones, right?
Mhm.
When we do a thing, a hormone can be released. Let's say dopamine. You have a if you drink alcoholic beverages, if you do certain drugs, you get a dopamine fix. It's like a hit, and then that feels good to the body, and then you want to do it again, and you want to do it again, and you want to do it again. But what you're doing is also degrading your system, which makes you lose inhibition. And once you lose inhibition, you find yourself um, displaying um, certain behaviors that may be misrepresentative of who you are characteristically when you are um, not under the influence of whatever that substance may be, right? Whatever that addiction may be. And so, with the epigenetics, is what it's saying is that there are experiences that you can have, and you have them repetitively over and over and over again to the point that it changes who you are. And we see that, and we'll claim it as our own, like, oh, this is our culture and this is a part of who we are, and you don't realize that you have actually been placed in a position to be that way. It's unnatural to you, but you don't know that because this is all that you know. And over time and for centuries, as we said in the previous slides, you have been criminalized. Yeah, people Yorugu our recessive terrorists have propagandized everything, right? And every time we turn and we think it's our idea, it's really not your own. But you practice it over and over and over and over again till it influences, you become it because you've ritualized it. And so this impact on the neural pathways is what you spoke to me on, right? Um, Conditioning, the ritualization of behaviors that are imposed upon us, the conditions that we've been placed in and had to um, overcome to persevere through, and not realizing how that's not just affecting us, it's also affecting the generations that will succeed us.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Um, Mama, neural pathways. You said we have biological and we have the artificial. Um, we know what the biological is, right? That's the uninterrupted, uninterfered, natural order of things, right? No interference. But then you have the artificial. For you, what have you recognized in the um, evolution of the Ma'afa, in the continuation of the Ma'afa, when it comes to the artificial ways that we are being imposed upon when it comes in terms of the algorithms?
You're talking about how the robotics, is that what you're talking about? The artificial, I call it robotics,
Mm-hmm.
AI business. I don't even like to use it. Um, you're talking about how they use how the brain works in order to manipulate us.
That's
Is that what
correct. And
you're talking about?
right. So from when you were writing your Rugu, right, until now, what have you seen in that transition? They've been,
Oh,
yeah, they've become more clever, and in fact, most of it is our genius. It's our genius, but it's
no, that's
corrupted.
absolutely right. Not only that, but I have one of the people who works with me, part of our collective, Abakusim Sumsum collective, has just written an article. We have a I don't know if you have one just to hold up, a newspaper called The African World, um, which is I wanted it to be hard copy because I wanted a real, what I call, newspaper from my time when there used to be newspapers. But we also have it digitally now, under pressure. So if people want to get it,
Pressure.
if they send, that's the newspaper, and if they want to get it, they can give their email address at some point, and we can send it to them digitally.
Okay.
It is I am avowedly a Garveyite, and as I say, my ideology is universal African nationalism. So, and the newspaper is that, it is for African sovereignists, and it promotes African sovereignty. So our last headline for last year was World African Revolution,
There
and
it is. Yeah.
we're about to come out. We're working real hard now, because they are a lot of work. Those newspapers, and they're long. Um, we're about to come out with a new edition.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, hopefully by Abakusim, which is May 9th. Um, so I think you taught, there was something you mentioned that I wanted. You said, how have I seen the
Yeah, the progression of the.
evolve in terms of what they use? Good, very good, good, good. And I think that's very, very necessary. Because one of the things I talk about it in different phases,
Mhm.
and and please, everybody listening, within my voice thing, understand, the Ma'afa does not refer to what has been called limited to the slave trade. I don't use that expression anymore. In fact, the last thing it occurred to me is that it was an industry, and an industry in the sense that many of the um, corporations and much of the economic wealth that you see Europeans having now actually are rooted in what they were able to establish because of their use of us as
Mm-hmm.
captive workers,
Happening.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
right? And so um one of the things that I've seen is I would say the evolution of the Ma'afa is the refinement of methods of control and domination to the level, and so we can't just focus on what we call, enslavement, and then okay, we got quote unquote free. That it hurts
Mm-hmm.
my heart. It really hurts my heart that our people celebrate what they call, what do they call it? That day. What am I trying
Um,
to say? The day when
Forfeit.
oh, I know what it is. They call it Juneteenth.
15th, yeah.
No, that's
And
commit.
you know
That
what
should
that
be
is?
commemoration, not a celebration. We still
Uh,
going through it.
well, have to be. It's become a celebration because of the manipulation of the enemy, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's like being happy because the master gave us another holiday.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And to me, the I call it the EP, or the Emancipation Proclamation, was actually um the beginning of a mistake for us, because what it did was it made, we thought that made us free, number one. But number two, it confused us,
Mm-hmm.
and we began thinking that
We was actually
we
free.
were American, and we wanted
Mm.
to be American and wanted to be better Americans. And I think that much of our leadership basically still wants to be American. I really do. And I think that's why they were able to get excited about the fact that we would have, we, and it's not ours, the president of the United States would be a black person, a sort of black person. Not a whole black person, but a sort of black person. Um, and that was because it at base, we still want to be American.
Mm. Part of that validation, and it was necessary for the
Yeah,
programming, right?
absolutely. So let's get back to Ma'afa. Do not think of the Ma'afa as being only in terms of the slave industry. The Ma'afa is unfortunately live and well. The Ma'afa is current. It is here. We're in it. It is a war zone
And we see it where you said there are instruments,
everywhere.
Mm.
and
The
so when we're
Ma'afa is and it's in everything. It functions everywhere through everything. It functions, as Nana Francis Cresswellsing told us. It is a system. It is a system of which works against the power of the African Asili, against the power of African people. Once we reconnect with that power and have and believe in ourselves again, it would seem to me that those of us, those of you who work to heal our people, that it depends very much on uh the power that comes with believing
Mm-hmm.
in your Africanness, believing it. I don't know if leadership now, I don't think they believe in Africa.
No, they believe in whatever is trending and will get views
And
and
whatever give money
monetization.
too, because you see,
Monetization, yeah.
you get these nations get money from leasing part of their land to the U.S. Military bases,
Validation.
which then
Yeah.
act to prevent any revolutionary activity on the continent.
And that's why I like when Burkina Faso,
That's
when
what
they
I'm
said, "Hey,
saying.
Mhm.
we don't need your bases here. Pack it up,
But not
pack it
only
up."
that, but you get somewhere like Ghana having them
Oh,
that border them, you see, and what do you think they'll be used for?
right,
Mm.
You see?
right.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
that the
uh,
colonial mentality is deep into anyway. All right.
yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
it goes back to what ERA was saying with seeking validation. I use
Yes.
another term, arrested development. So this is why um we decided to launch this, because we wanted to go down the different branches which interlink with
Uh
intergenerational trauma. So when
huh.
we use the arrested development, we have to go we
Right.
have to go to the root cause of why things are being played out in today's society the way it is right now.
Right.
You know,
Right.
but when we've experienced um maybe the neglect or not feeling wanted, yeah, or abused at
Mm.
Yes.
at a young age, yeah,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
people overcompensate as time goes on.
Right. 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 Right.
They will
Right. Right.
overcompensate as time goes on. It's almost like trying to catch
Chasing the
what
high.
was.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
right. Right.
absolutely.
Yeah. I
Right.
gotta have a
Right.
Yeah,
bachelor. I gotta have an associates. Gotta have a bachelor. Gotta have a master's. I gotta have permanent head damage. Right?
yeah,
How far you gonna go? Right?
yeah,
I got
yeah.
confusion.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you say that, because times we're going into a different era. We're going into a different stage, and going back to the cultural identity, and obviously learning how
Right.
a lot of our African family was raised and brought up. Even with you know me and even us being our 40s, we remember how we were raised, and what
Right.
we made use of what we had at the time. I was
Mm-hmm.
still young enough to use things like the typewriter, be creative with whatever resources we had at a younger age now.
Mm-hmm.
And when we think about what it's interesting, because I have these conversations with a number of my continental African brothers and sisters. Obviously, I'm Nigerian, being born over here in the UK, but I have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the conversations with
Right.
my brothers and sisters out here. Carrying a bucket of water on their head is something which they seem to run away from. And I'm not saying we can't live. I think that it goes back to the post PTSD from probably having to do that, and probably seeing their own brothers and sisters who probably inflicted the trauma or the abuse, and seeing that as something where we can't do that, so we have to live where we have all these luxuries you know
Listen, somebody asked me today, said, "Oh, you gonna be on the podcast?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "You got your mic and you got the camera," and I said, "I got what I got, and that's what we gonna use because you gonna be able to see me and hear me." Listen, we gonna make it work.
yeah, absolutely, we're gonna make it work.
Right? all of these things that we think are luxury are hampering our senses, and it's taking us away from what it is that we know that is natural to us, right? It's disconnecting us from ourselves. My sons, they say, I type a number in into my phone. They say, "Well, it just popped up right there. Why you don't just?" I don't want to tap the name. I want to touch
Yes,
the
absolutely.
numbers. Right? It's my mind. It's my memory.
Absolutely.
When that's gone, then what? Because I allowed somebody to make it easy for me. That's a trap,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then it, and
right?
then
Mm-hmm.
everything steers into the
Yeah,
world of continuously steers into the world of codependency.
right. Mm.
Mm-hmm. Codependency, as opposed to what we, when we live
Abs-
communally, we're interdependent.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Right? And we've already
Absolutely.
talked about individualism, so I'm going to move from this slide. But I know, Mama, you wanted to talk about the academy. Um, did you want to expound on? Do you see the slide here? Um,
Well, no, just quickly, that's easy to do. What happens in the academy is it's organized totally on it. If you think about it, it's very individualistic and very what happens with that kind of individualism to that level is that you become competitive
mhm,
with the other
each other.
individual.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's individuals against each other.
Hmm.
And actually that's their whole thing. If you go back and study what they call democracy and the development of it as when it was a quote unquote new form of government, it was supposed to be so that you could protect yourself against the interests of the other individuals.
Hmm.
Okay, so it presupposes this warlike, relationship between people who are not communally connected through love and
That's right.
spirit.
And
It's
spirit.
a very materialistic concept, right?
Hmm.
And so what the academy does is you go in it as an individual and you function as an individual and you show what you can
Hmm.
do and know. It's a show and tell
Show
thing
and
as an
tell.
individual. That's what the academy is about. And you better than that one and better than this one and you're graded on that and so forth and so on. So
Hmm.
it does that.
Hmm.
It does not promote cooperative mechanisms.
Hmm.
That doesn't happen. But it's also using a paradigm of knowledge and
Hmm.
learning that is non-African. It says uh nowhere should you use your feelings
Hmm.
in learning. That in fact it's predicated on the assumption that emotion and feelings and spirit are antithetical to learning, intelligence, and knowledge. And you see, that puts Africans acting and moving against themselves.
Hmm.
So in that environment, we're acting against the very strength and power that we have as African people. So that has been much of my work, is to show what is that power of Africa. Well, how does it work?
Hmm.
And we don't understand that, but once we do, and if we embrace it, whoo, you talk
We can
about
act in our
power.
own
And
interests,
see, that's the power that they are afraid of.
and
The
so
enemy,
to do that,
knows it. Um,
we have to develop those
we don't
ma'arif.
know it. We don't know it. We don't
Right.
have that. I mean, Nana Clark has a lecture, and I advise everybody to see it. It's online. The restoration of confidence. He, of course, has many lectures that are wonderful, but that particular one, I think the whole thing of how they took away our confidence, and that's what happens in the academy. You are taught to be confident on what comes from the outside, not the
Mm-hmm.
inside. Okay, but you are really taught to be ashamed of and embarrassed by Africanness, African emotion, African ritual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're disconnected from your soul. You
And in
see, that's
doing
great of our soul.
and restoring that is how we
Yes.
say we develop the meiotic neural pathways. And
Yes.
so here, where you say, this is my aunt, right? This is your African cultural integrity. Your immune system is strong.
Well, what happens is being Maadic, being African feels good, begins to feel good. That's the thing
Hmm.
and it also drives your conclusions, your thoughts, your actions.
Hmm. Right. Okay. So you're talking about the Asili, the Utamawazo, and the Utamaroho, right? That drive, right?
Well, I would be
That
talking
thought.
about that if I wanted to, but it's so that can be. I don't want to be confusing.
Well, you just said it. So we got to learn now, Mama.
Okay.
We're
All
gonna get
right. All
stuck.
right.
That's why we messed up now.
So Utamawazo is simply that your culture structures how you need to think in order to make that culture work. And so the European Utamawazo has us thinking in a way that gives them power because the whole culture is about their power. It's about their achievement and maintenance of power over other. And we are the other to have power over.
Indeed.
I don't know if that's what you want, but that is
But
in
that's
a
what it is,
nutshell
right? And
is what
and
is okay.
right. And so that's why I was saying earlier about rebuilding, reclaiming, and restoring, right? And retrieving that ancestral memory.
Hmm. And I'm glad you said that because I had forgotten it, but ancestral memory is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
Memory is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ma'afa was the attempt to destroy our ancestral memory.
Indeed. And so as they attempted and so far they've been hammering away, and so we have a responsibility. And you've done an abundance of work, and now it's time for your apprentices, right? Those of us who are coming after you who study, to continue to study and to teach. But we have to rewire our brains in order to be able to effectively do so and to have an effective impact on the generations that are to come, right? We do that through ritual and all things that we discuss. We have conversations within
You know,
context,
the
right?
concept of the wiring of the brain is we didn't talk about, but I think for our listeners and viewers is very important, and we may not have time to do it, but it's something maybe they can pursue on their own. But um, there is something that biologists have called, and neuroscientists, I guess, have called neuroplasticity. And what that is that the ability of the brain to change, to restructure it and it can do it at itself. So is everybody clear on that wiring? The brain is wired, and there
Mm-hmm.
are things which wire it. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that we have been alluding to are the ways in which the nervous system makes these wires, that is
Mm-hmm.
messages that go to the brain,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there are pathways that certain things trigger um, messages in the brain, which trigger forms of behavior. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and we talk about that as wiring the brain. So our brain has been what I've been talking about in Ma'afa is that Ma'afa is a way of wiring the brain, and
That's
that's
right.
what we call neural pathways. They do it through neural pathways and controlling
Absolutely.
those neural pathways. And the way in which you do that is by repetitive
Repetition.
behavior, doing something over. Think of it very simply. It doesn't have to be complicated. But those of you who play an instrument, you do practice, or you should do practice. If you're learning piano and you want to be
Mm-hmm.
good at it, if you want to even use it to express yourself, your
Mm-hmm.
spirit, you've got to learn that instrument, and you have to practice over and over and over again. When you practice like that, it becomes a part of you.
You.
Okay? Now, athletes do that as well. And people who are involved in athletics or use their body
Mm-hmm.
in a particular
They have
way
muscle
like that,
memory.
a repetitive way, they practice, and practice is so important, and that's why it's important. It's because of the nature of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
It's a
that as you
muscle.
practice, what you're doing is that you're making your brain say, yeah, this is how you do this. I want to do this. And it
Mm-hmm.
becomes better and better, and you're more easy at it. You're better at it, but it becomes easier for you. And stay away from practicing for a little while, for a couple of weeks or a month,
For a
and
moment.
see what it's like when you go back to doing whatever it is that you're trying to do, and you'll understand. So what we're
Mm.
saying here, what I'm trying to do is put that in to the context of our healing of Ma'afa, and what has been done to us and what is being done to us now. So the Ma'afa is unfortunately live and well, y'all. It is not just
Mm-hmm.
captive slavery,
So,
enslavement
Mama,
when we're captive workers. Everybody got that?
indeed, and so, you spoke on Nana Welsing. I don't know if you want to touch on this, but you've spoken on what she has contributed as far as the spiritual conceptions and its significance, and how we see ourselves, and the impact of how the way that we see ourselves and the way that we function. Right? If you don't know who
Oh,
you are.
that is important. Let me just say this about her. Her work was brilliant in that what she got us to or should have gotten us to see. I don't think we've listened to her. Is that the white power structure, what she calls white supremacy, I call white power, is a system. And a system is everything within a system works to support that or produce a particular thing. And what that system is able to do is to inferiorize Black people. That
Mhm.
is, it makes us act as inferior, think of ourselves as inferior, and within the system itself, in terms of power, we are inferior. And I
Mhm.
think that's very important in her work, and that people need to study her more. Okay, we become inferior. We see ourselves as inferior in relationship to you know white
Mhm.
people.
And so, as we honor her work, we also honored the work of Nana Bobby E. Wright. Right above Nana Wilson's photo, we have Baba Baruti in the center. We have Nana Kobe Cambone um, on
We
Baba's.
should have
Yeah.
Baba Amos Wilson, who,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you can listen to him. He's all over, I think, YouTube, but absolutely brilliant in understanding
Mm-hmm.
the effect
And
of
so
their
we have,
domination on us, on our thinking, on our ability to think, and so forth.
and under Nana Wilson's photo, we have Nana Wangari. And we
Who
spoke
just
briefly.
is monumental because what she did was to, in spite of, and she says this, her academic, European academic training, valued her traditional culture, the way she'd been raised in the village, and understanding the value it placed on nature, on the trees, and what the trees and the symbiotic relationship between us and the tree and our environment.
Mm-hmm. The green belt. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and so we are here at rituals. We know about the Haitian Revolution. We know about PAIGC, um, the Dismal Swamps, right? Where we resisted the tyranny of white supremacy or white hegemony or white power or recessive terrorism. Um, and you have Abakasim Sunsum, and we have Abakasim Sunsum. Um, what brought Abakasim Sunsum to you? To your what made you visualize that? What happened?
Hold on 1 second. Are you okay there, Mama?
No, I'm okay. So
Okay.
it the very beginning, it started off as a I don't know if people know, but my teacher, my Jegna, my leader was Nana John Henry Clark, is still is. And so Bakasim Sunsum came about because we, a group of us, commissioned a bust, like a statue, but just the bust, to be made of him, which I subsequently took to Africa, to Ghana, where a shrine was set up for him in Kumasi,
Mm-hmm.
Ghana. And Abakasim, the first Abakasim, was the unveiling of the bust. And Baba Asa Hilliard was there. He
Oh
helped
my
do that.
God.
It was that was in 2004. And it then became, it evolved into an honoring of, and we call it a raising up of, the warrior ancestors collectively.
Mm.
And my idea of African spiritual warfare is that the energy of people like Nat Turner, Araminta,
Mm-hmm.
Ross, Harriet Tubman, of what they did, the actions that they took, didn't go anywhere. That the energy is still there, and for that I use a model of thought that comes from physics, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the energy doesn't, it's still there, and
Still there.
so we can actually tap into that energy, and that I called African spiritual warfare. And so Abakasim was a place in which it was supported, advocated, and developed. And another very deep, you see, African thought and the African worldview and understanding and spirit is, and spiritual philosophy is very deep. It's what we call deep thought and deep structure, and for that, people need to read Jacob Carruthers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's the name of that book? Um, What you know what I'm talking, not intellectual warfare, but the other one is African, it may be African deep thought, something like that. At any rate, and so what you have to understand, we have to understand, is not only are we honoring our ancestors, but in African spiritual thought, we are our ancestors reborn.
Mm-hmm.
Since that's the case, we have a big responsibility, because people like Nat Turner, I mean, it's like, how can you think that you're going to take on this monster when you have nothing but something in you says, you can't do this to me anymore. I'm gonna do something about it. And that to me means so much. And so, of course, Nat Turner, they were stopped, they were caught, and he was assassinated. But my thing, and even with, if you think about somebody like Thomas Sankara, is that it is up to us to make them victorious.
That's right.
You see what I'm
Ashe.
saying? We can continue that, and we play it out, and we make it a victory,
Ashe.
because not only are we our ancestors reborn, and do we praise them and honor them, but in the African conception, we are our ancestors.
And
Does that make sense to people?
it
We are
does.
our ancestors, and that's a
And
very
so,
deep. It's a deep thought, and it's one you would never get in a university. You never get in a academy, because they can't. You know, Plato could not. Uh-uh.
yeah,
No,
that's not their thing,
that's
right?
not their thing. Thank you.
Don't tell them
So
that.
Okay.
Saturday, May 9th, 2026, our annual
Oh
Abacus and
yes. So
Stone
in
Ritual Drama.
Abacasim, what we do is we reenact. We do ritual drama where we reenact um the war from our perspective. So the children, I focus on children, because I want the children to feel what it feels like to be a victorious African warrior. So they get to be these great people. They get to be them. And I'm saying that that is a way of creating what I call meiotic neural pathways. So we're actually affecting them on a physical level.
Mm-hmm. Where
And
we,
and since we only do that once a year, you at home with your children, if you're African, need to raise them in a way where you are doing that. You have a pattern of life and a rhythm where they have things where they become Omawale Malcolm X.
mm-hmm.
They become, Yao Santiwa. They become those African people. And I'm saying to you, and you can say, Mama Marimba said this. I'm saying to you that that will actually affect them on a physical level, because of the concept of neural pathways. You see what I'm saying? And I'm saying that to say why we would even talk about all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mama, we appreciate the wealth of knowledge. We said, people said, well, how long is gonna be? I said 30 to 45 minutes. I ain't doing nothing. I gotta go to bed. My bedtime's 7 o'clock now.
Yeah.
But and I don't know what time it is in the UK, but it
Yeah.
has certainly felt like it hasn't felt like the time that we have spent, and we cherish all of it.
Yeah. So we appreciate you, Mama Marimba, for joining
I
us
appreciate
as
y'all.
our first special guest as we have launched our Black Trauma Uncensored podcast. It's just been an honor to have you here, in our surrounding. still here as a living ancestor, sharing your wisdom and knowledge
Thank
with
you.
us.
Medasi,
It's been
Medasi, for having
it's been a beautiful experience, and we appreciate you. Yeah, so we would like to give a special thanks to our special guest, Mama
Mm-hmm.
Maremba Annie.
me. Thank you.
Ashayo.
Asheo. Okay, so yeah. So yes, this is our very first episode. We will return at the usual time, which will be 6:30 US Eastern time and 11:30 GMT UK time next week Thursday. I think it's Thursday the 16th. Am I
The 16th. That's
right?
correct.
16th. Okay, so we appreciate everybody for tuning in and being patient with us, and yeah,
Yeah.
sending them sending the messages in the chat section.
Oh, yeah, there's a chat.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
I'll have an opportunity next
I've been
week.
welcoming people. I've been greeting people. So yeah.
Beautiful. Eshe,
Okay.
Asante Sana, Madasi Pa, Dua.
Uh-huh. Totally.
Okay. A BB48, and thank you once again.
BB48, race first.
Okay.
One God,
Black
one
power.
aim, one Africa.